I've been grinding the Stick of Truth for the past couple of weeks, just trying to knock out these trophies, and I'm going to finish that soon-ish. But right now I really want to get back into the more Final Fantasy VII theory crafting, because there's a couple of videos that I watched just on the humbug, going through my YouTube feed, that I really want to do commentary on, because they're bringing up some stuff that I've never heard before, throwing out ideas that I've never heard before, and I just kind of want to get into that, throw some commentary into the mix. I want to get into more subtext stuff, but he hasn't been really dropping videos lately. He was on live YouTube last night, and I missed him. I just barely missed him. I click on and he's signing off, and I wanted to ask him a couple of things, and now I can't even remember what they are. I think one of them was when he's going to drop a new theory video. He dropped one, I want to say a month or two ago, and I haven't really gotten started on my commentary on that yet, but I do want to do something with that, because he commented on the video that I did commentary on a few months back, and it made me want to look at more of his stuff. Pause. So let's get into what I have been looking at. We've got one from John Q Gamer. This has been making the rounds. Only at 728 subscribers, but that number's about to shoot up real quick, because this video is getting popularity, buddy.
If I were to tell you that all along, from the very beginning, and especially right up to the end, Sephiroth has been telling us the answers to all of our questions, right in front of us the whole time, with many of the elements in Rebirth further expanding our understanding and supporting that assertion. What I'm about to present to you is something I haven't seen many people discussing, so let's break it all down. The first concept we're going to explore is the nature of the planet itself and how it actually functions. Here are some of the things we know about the planet of Gaia, as well as some associated questions for which we may not have all the answers at this time. According to Bugenhagen, planetology is, in part,
not simply the study of the cosmos and the celestial bodies that dwell in it. Rather, it is a quest to comprehend the cyclical nature of life.
That means that life and the planet operate in a
cycle of continuous convergence and divergence,
which can be studied. We also know mankind was born from its soil, and upon death, the body withers and returns to the planet. Similarly, the mind, spirit, soul comes from the life stream, and at the time of death,
our bodies may disappear when we die, but our spirits still live on. We return to the planet, rejoin the life stream, and in time give rise to new life.
We also know the life stream is
an apt name, though it is as much a reservoir as it is a stream, being the sum of the planet's spiritual energy.
The life stream is also comprised of the accumulated memories, emotions, knowledge, hopes, and dreams of every individual who has ever lived.
Yeah, established lore.
It is the very essence of our star, the blood coursing through its planetary veins. And if ever that essence were to be entirely depleted,
the planet runs out of energy. It and everything on it dies.
The planet needs the life stream to survive. And the planet has a will of its own.
The flow of the great river that is the planet, from inception to oblivion.
And it exercises that will via the Whispers. The Whispers are
perhaps best described as arbiters of fate. They are drawn to those who attempt to alter destiny's course and ensure they do not.
Like capital D? Destiny? And you're saying that that flow is somehow fixed?
So if we're destined for a bleak future, these Whispers will try to keep us on that course?
They're led by the Whisper Harbinger, which is a weapon just as much as those featured in Rebirth.
Yeah.
The Whispers exist and function across all worlds which make up the planet. The Whispers can only be seen by those who defy destiny or when coming into contact with someone who attempts to alter the course of destiny.
I was under the impression early on that the Whispers could only be seen by somebody who played a significant role in Final Fantasy VII's world as a whole. Like, of course, Aerith has a significant role in the original game, so of course she can see them. But Rufus can see them. Doesn't seem to have a big role. But when you consider Rebirth and his interactions with Glenn, then it's pretty plain to see that he's got a big role, because Sephiroth is trying to gaslight him. Not so much as gaslight, but greenlight him into triggering a war with Wutai. So, of course, Rufus has a big role in Destiny. Cloud couldn't see them until Aerith touched him.
Are you blind?
And as introduced in Rebirth,
the planet encompasses a multitude of worlds, ever unfolding. Some quickly perish, while others endure. Yet even the most resilient worlds are doomed to fade.
this new and mysterious concept of multiple worlds was fascinating for open-minded players who
I would say that it's in essence, it's a multiverse, and that's not a new thing. That's not a new thing. For me, multiverses started way back in the 80s, back in the Secret Wars storyline from Marvel. Not Secret Wars 2015, but Secret Wars 88. I wasn't big on comic books when the original Secret Wars came out, but after I read it, it's not that new. Even now with Final Fantasy VII, it's not a new thing. It's just that Nomura and the gang are putting a different spin on a multiverse. In Marvel, the multiverse is always accessed through some sort of technology. In FF7, it's through the live stream.
wanted the Final Fantasy VII they knew and loved, but more significantly expanded. Personally, I fell into this camp myself. As it turns out, such a prospect was concerning for players of the OG Final Fantasy VII, who would have preferred for Square Enix to have made an exact one-to-one remake of the original PS1 game with better visuals on modern hardware.
That wouldn't have gotten much traction with me personally. I mean, I still would have got it, still would have loved it, but there's no mystery, there's no intrigue. I love the remake trilogy because there's a new mystery there. It's a lot of what we know, but it's very different, mainly because of the multiverse stuff. We don't know what's going to happen. With a better looking OG, we already know that story. And of course they have to expand on everything because it has to be modernized for a modern audience. And it still would have been 3 parts because of how big it is.
In fact, this sentiment was vocalized enough that after Remake debuted in 2020, fans began to speculate whether the Whispers, and their role as custodians to maintain the sacred course of the story's events, were a meta-level reference by the developers to represent
the purist
desires for zero change to the original game.
Right.
The creatives behind Remake and Rebirth obviously made another call, however, and the concept of these worlds has become canon. But when and how does the planet decide to form these new worlds? And what causes them to be created? Based on the information available in Rebirth, it appears one way these worlds are born comes through a divergence from the intended will of the planet. When choices are made, which...
Yeah, Avengers Endgame type shit. If you change something in the past, it branches off the timeline.
Branch from the course of destiny, it appears new worlds are potentially made as represented by a rainbow effect seen in Rebirth.
Only we're not dealing with timelines here. That's the only difference.
However, in order for an individual to break from the will of the planet, a world containing that person must already exist in the first place. So it's reasonable to conclude that the planet also materializes worlds and populates them with all forms of life by tapping into the spiritual energy of the life stream, as stated by Bugenhagen previously. Additionally, One Rebirth in PC also theorizes that the planet may even create worlds from more metaphysical sources as well.
So
So, my parents are no longer with us. Here, that is. But I believe they're still out there, on another plane. I've been reading a bunch of theories about this alternate world in the hope of going there someday. And over the course of my studies, I stumbled across a fascinating theory. It addressed the issue of what the life stream is, arguing that spiritual energy is actually a manifestation of our knowledge and memories. Like I said, it's a fascinating theory, but it's incomplete. What about our hopes and dreams? We remember those, don't we? So what if spiritual energy doesn't distinguish between our real, lived memories and the unrealized desires buried deep in our hearts? What if coming into contact with that energy allowed us to peer through the looking glass, so to speak? It's just an idea, but I hope to find the truth someday.
That's pretty much what the remake trilogy is, in a nutshell. Or at least how the live stream works in the remake trilogy.
Aerith seems to back up this theory by indicating that one world was...
Let's just call it a dream.
No.
My dream.
No. We don't use that word around here.
Was Aerith able to manifest the date world via the live stream using her hopes and dreams?
Lots of confusion.
We also know that all inhabitants of Gaia seem to have separate existences across these disparate worlds. But how exactly does this process work when a consciousness re-enters the life stream and helps in the creation of a new life? I think there's three main possibilities. Is a person's spiritual energy diffused and used to create new, completely different life within the same world where they died? Or is a completely new life created, but in a different world instead? Or, hear me out, are the people reborn as themselves, but in a different world? So their spiritual energy remains, but when new life is born out of the life stream, it's still them.
Interesting. I want to hear. Yeah.
Within the...
Run that back.
Is a person's spiritual energy diffused and used to create new, completely different life within the same world where they died? Or is a completely new life created, but in a different world instead? Or, hear me out, are the people reborn as themselves, but in a different world? So their spiritual energy remains, but when new life is born out of the life stream, it's still them. Sephiroth is aware
New
this
stuff.
World exists and is, at least in some manner,
new ideas.
connected as one conscious being across the worlds. He also appears to exist outside of any specific world at the edge of creation as well. Sephiroth also uses the black robes to physically manifest himself and exert control and manipulation of people and events. Based on Aerith's uncanny knowledge of events during Remake,
He's my bodyguard. And a soldier. Pretty cool, huh?
Huh?
I guessed. From the sword.
and certain sequences of Rebirth.
Whatever happens, don't blame yourself.
Is there enough evidence to deduce that Aerith also possesses some power which is not contained to singular worlds?
New evidence? Not really. But if you go back to, yep, you guessed it, Livestream White, we can come to a conclusion that Aerith can do what Sephiroth can do, but it's more pure because she is of the planet and can be absorbed into the life stream. So she has similar abilities. Omni Aerith.
All made whole forever.
There's no such thing as forever.
We also learned that worlds that are fading or about to expire have a rift which becomes visible in the sky. But what's the nature of this rift and what does it exactly represent? If we take a look at Zack's experiences, a rift was not present in the skies of the Terrier world during the opening prologue of Rebirth. Zack only first sees it after being told by Elmyra that people are saying the world is ending. But Elmyra and the other NPCs of the Sector 5 slums seem to have known about the rift for a while, and they most certainly wouldn't have grappled with why it was in the sky or what it meant in the short time it took for Zack to move Aerith and hide away from Shinra until Elmyra could come to them. So the reasonable conclusion is Zack couldn't have seen it at first, but then only could after Elmira mentioned it and recent events caused Zack to feel as though the world or his world could be ending.
Right.
Are these rifts only visible to people who have accepted that the world is going to end? And is that why only Cloud can see the one at the end of Rebirth, but the rest...
Now, I thought, and I still think this way, that the only reason why Cloud and Zack can see the rifts in the sky is because they were exposed to the multiverse, that in-between world, that nether realm.
...of the party cannot.
Don't look up.
Well, now I gotta look.
Fine, but don't let it get to you.
Don't let what get to me?
Now that we've discussed at least 3 potential ways the various worlds might be created, how are these different versions of Gaia connected via the life stream?
See, Cloud went through all that, so we could see the rip now.
Stream? Does each world have their own measure of the life stream? And how or why do worlds endure or fade at different paces? Is the length of their survival based on their own shares of the life stream? While we don't have enough information to make a concrete determination one way or the other about how the worlds exist and interact with the life stream, we do know a few details with which we can establish a small foundation to build upon in Part 3. All worlds are connected via the life stream, as demonstrated by Cloud seeing through to Aerith's dream world while he was sleeping, or when Aerith could feel Zack's hand. We do know that it is possible for an individual world's portion of the life stream to dry up, as we saw that happen at the empty reactor in Rebirth.
Seems it's all out of Mako. Pump's still sucking away, but the only thing it's pulling up is dirt.
Meaning?
That the life stream's bone dry. Bomb one reactor, bomb them all. Planet's done either way.
We also know worlds can be united.
And that's a little symbolic. That's a little symbolic how Biggs' chip bag with that world's stamp on it is empty, symbolizing that that world's life stream is empty.
Can aid us in not only understanding the mechanics of how the planet and its worlds function, but provide us with a fairly reasonable answer to this question and its greater impact on what's to come. But before we can start putting these pieces together, there's one more topic which looms over everything in Remake and Rebirth, which must be discussed. There's still so much we don't know about Jenova. Obviously, the devs have been intentional about holding back key pieces of information to be revealed in Part 3. But even if we look across the entire compilation of Final Fantasy VII, from the original game to now, so much of the lore around Jenova has just never been explored.
Not really, no.
And while we don't have anywhere close to a puzzle box to know what the picture will ultimately resemble, I do think Remake and Rebirth presented us with just enough pieces that we can begin fitting them together and get a rough idea of what parts of it will look like. Let's review what we do know. Jenova came from space and crashed on Gaia roughly 2,000 years ago.
Long ago, a wound marred the northern lands.
The specimen found in strata dating back 2,000 years smiled with what could only be described as ethereal grace. She needed a name, and so I dubbed her Jenova.
This raises the question of how Jenova actually came to Gaia. Did Jenova arrive via the Gi's homeworld that it had already consumed? When Gi Natak is narrating during the final battle of the Gi village, he describes the end of their homeworld.
With the passing of eons, the star we called home began to wane, until at last it was subsumed by your own. The earth shook, seas boiled, skies shattered, and time stopped. Few of my people survived the chaos and calamity. Those who did began a new life here. But to the planet, we were not welcome, not in life nor in death.
Genova is referred to as the Calamity from the Skies and is a destroyer of worlds. And according to Bugenhagen, the Gi arrived many millennia ago. Is it possible that these two are connected? One additional possibility is that the Gi summoned Genova via the black materia before the Cetra could steal it. Gi Natak stated,
"From the planet, we claim the greatest of materia, a most sacred treasure, and imbued it with our desire for freedom. After an eternity, the materia began to stir, and thus did we rejoice, knowing that salvation was within our grasp."
Perhaps as the Cetra locked away the black materia, Genova arrived as a result. Or is there some other explanation entirely for Genova's arrival? Genova also possesses an ability to mimic the dead.
Though in time we triumphed over the calamity visited upon us by the stars, tragedy would nevertheless be our ultimate reward. For the children of men feared us. For the children of man envied us. Perhaps their enmity was seeded by our celestial adversary. None can say. A deceiver that stole the faces of the dead, of mothers and fathers, sisters and brothers lost. With their voices did it sow the seeds of discord among our people, among the children of man.
The Cetra were the original stewards of the planet prior to Genova's arrival, and they could communicate with the planet to understand its desires and needs. And we know the Cetra stood against Genova, just as they did the Gi.
It has ever been our sacred duty to protect our planet against any who would threaten it. They who came from without were one such threat.
Lastly, we know that Genova was successful in basically killing off pretty much almost all of the Cetra.
Alas, the ancients themselves are long gone. 2,000 years ago, a meteor brought an end to their civilization.
Regardless, we had been forsaken by fate, abandoned to unquenchable anger and unbearable grief, condemned and driven forth, powerless to forestall the coming of our end. For the planet did we lay down our lives in battle, and in death returned to her embrace.
But before their fiery end, did the ancients find their promised land? Even now, we have only to wonder.
However, since Genova did not originate from the Lifestream, it couldn't rejoin the Lifestream, just as the Gi could not.
Those not born of the Lifestream can never join its flow. One cannot return to that from which one did not arise.
Yet our adversary did not. Could not. Thus did it fall into a deep slumber. And in the long silence of its sleep, it was given the name Genova.
Genova.
Now that we've explored the nature of the planet, its multiple concurrent realities, the Lifestream which bridges them, and the external entity known as Genova, I'll start to fit some of the puzzle pieces together in a manner which makes the most sense to me. And to do so, I'll start where we left off a moment ago and work backwards. How exactly did the Cetra manage to stop Genova? Genova was a life force from beyond the Cetra's own world. Its nature was unknown to the ancients, and Genova possessed the power to adjust its appearance, speech, and behaviors to imitate other creatures. We know from the scene in the Temple of the Ancients that the Cetra teamed up with humans to fight Genova. From what we've learned, the Cetra essentially went almost extinct, and the only result their alliance with the humans could muster was to force Genova into a form of stalemate and stasis. But how was this achieved? Perhaps the Cetra knew enough about the planet to be aware of its multiple worlds, and how the Lifestream connects them. But even if they did, How would that help them in their battle to subdue Jenova? Here's the reasonable explanation to me, and the case I'll make for how the blurry picture on the puzzle box looks to me by the end of Rebirth. The planet was once whole, and served as the home of the ancients until the arrival of Jenova. Recognizing they were unable to beat this alien entity, and with the survival of the planet they loved at stake, they were forced to split their home into multiple realities. The first rainbowed action, perhaps? The Cetra used their knowledge of the lifestream to divide the planet into a multitude of worlds. And by doing so, Jenova, who was unable to be absorbed into the lifestream, was instead pulled apart and splintered across all those worlds.
Oh, that's a good theory.
That the Cetra, having immense and intimate knowledge of the planet and the lifestream, might have been the first to break the will of the planet. Intimate knowledge.
See, this is what I'm talking about. Something new to consider.
Until was one puzzle box looks to me by the end of Rebirth. The planet was once whole.
See, this is what I'm talking about. This is what I'm talking about. Something new to consider.
The arrival of Jenova. Recognizing they were unable to beat this alien entity, and with the survival
Nobody's saying this.
of the planet they loved at stake, they were forced to split their home into multiple realities. The first rainbowed action, perhaps? The Cetra used their knowledge of the lifestream to divide the planet into a multitude of worlds, and by doing so, Jenova, who was unable to be absorbed into the lifestream, was instead pulled apart and splintered across all those worlds. It's reasonable to conclude that the Cetra, having immense and intimate knowledge of the planet and the lifestream, might have been the first to break the will of the planet, with the understanding that it would split the planet into multiple worlds, and that all life of the planet would continue via the lifestream. However, Jenova would be unable to wreak havoc upon the planet in its disassembled state. It's also fairly plausible that the Whispers were created by the planet as a reaction to the Cetra's defiance and subsequent disappearance.
Yeah, I think that's more or less confirmed, that the Whispers are just agents of the planet. I think the devs might have confirmed that in an interview.
It formed its first weapon, the Whisper Harbinger, as a means of ensuring its own will is followed. Based on this theory, the events which play out on an individual world are unable to bring about a final resolution for Sephiroth, Jenova, or the Gi, because those events are contained to that single reality. As such, it stands to reason that in order for anything to truly affect these aspects of our story, the disparate worlds of the planet would need to come back together, a homecoming of sorts. And since we have yet to see anything across all of the worlds of Final Fantasy VII that resembles the actual Promised Land...
This isn't the Promised Land.
You see, that's why Reunion would have made a better title for Part 3 if they hadn't already used it for Crisis Core. I still don't think they're going to use Reunion for Part 3, but after hearing that, it would have made perfect sense to use that title. Reunite is an okay title, but I don't think they'll use that because it sounds too much like Reunion.
I mean, just look around. It can't be. Not with all this sadness and anger.
This place. Is it the Promised Land?
I'm sorry, but I don't think it is.
Of course. Figures.
It's also logical that the scriptures passed down by the ancients tell of a time when the planet they loved would once again be made whole, a thought which, to them, probably seemed like a distant promise to return the land back to how it was before.
Unto her promised land shall we one day return. By her loving grace and providence, may we take our place in paradise.
If this is truly how the puzzle fits together, it appears Sephiroth may have figured out the box's cover art as well, with his words and actions backing it up. Let's evaluate what we know about Sephiroth and his master plan based on what has been presented in Remake and Rebirth. Cloud believes
he wants to finish what he started. He wants to reclaim his birthright and rule over the planet with Jenova at his side.
Aerith seems to think he's going against the way that things should be.
And you're wrong. Everything about you is wrong.
There's no such thing as forever.
No. You're wrong.
We also know Sephiroth doesn't want Cloud to die. Rather, he wants Cloud's help.
I have a favor to ask. Our beloved planet is dying. Slowly. Silently. Painfully. Can you bear to see the planet suffer? Cloud. That which binds us together would be no more, and I would be loath to live in such a world, which is why I must ask you this one favor. Don't worry, it's a simple thing. Run, Cloud. Run away. You have to leave. You have to live. Careful now. That which lies ahead does not yet exist. Our world will become a part of it one day, but I will not end. Nor will I have you end. Cloud, lend me your strength. Let us defy destiny together.
Never.
Leave me out of it.
How very stubborn of you. Perhaps you need a little push.
Sephiroth wants the black materia, presumably to call forth a meteor capable of causing catastrophic damage to the planet, as seen in Shinra's visual entertainment hall during Remake and also shown in Rebirth. Guy Natak also all but confirmed this function of the black materia when he begged the party to return it to the Guy.
Our ultimate salvation is cessation. It is nothingness. Our wish is not to exist, but rather to no longer exist.
It's hard to feel at ease around folks whose only desire is death. And if the planet won't let them have it, well, who's to say they won't let the planet have it?
We ask that you retrieve it. The black materia, key to our oblivion. Please. It alone can liberate us from this endless dream.
Sephiroth appears to have needed the party to help destroy the Whisper Harbinger and break the planet's hold over Destiny so he could take control of the Whispers himself. Perhaps to unbind those who were born on Gaia from the planet and the lifestream and maybe bind them to whatever Sephiroth wants to create?
They're not bound to the planet, and so she rejects them.
Because you have to come from the life stream to return to it.
She gets it.
All born are bound to her. Should this world be unmade, so too shall her children.
So despite his desire to attain the black materia and summon Meteor, outright destruction of the planet doesn't seem to be Sephiroth's actual intent. However, when Sephiroth grabbed the black materia in Rebirth, he called it
the key, which grants access to the true counterpart hidden between worlds.
And we know Sephiroth didn't want the remake Beagle world to have a white materia, because when Cloud still possessed it after his time spent in Aerith's dream world, Sephiroth stated,
"That doesn't belong here."
Very poor form.
Very poor form.
While we don't have enough information by the end of Rebirth to understand why, the existence of a white materia is clearly not something Sephiroth wants. And perhaps he even formed the singularity at the end of Remake, knowing Aerith would need to use or empty her white materia to modify it as she did, thus his way of getting rid of it? And the concept of a reunion has been referenced many, many times.
A touching reunion. For the future is bright. We are to bear witness to the reunion of worlds.
And based on some very specific lines of dialogue during the Temple of the Ancients, it seems extremely plausible Sephiroth is trying to reunite all of the worlds which make up the planet with the intention of making it and Jenova whole.
Yet I shall remain. I, son of Jenova, will at last claim my birthright. My dominion shall reach into infinity. It shall encompass worlds unbound by fate, and histories unwritten. My fragmented mother, these errant worlds, all shall be one again.
The reunion.
All made whole, forever.
There's no such thing as forever.
Ah. But there will be.
This statement seems to tie back to what Sephiroth said in the Nibelheim reactor way back at the beginning of Rebirth.
Together we will reclaim.
Yeah, full circle.
World.
Yeah.
And I know exactly how we can do that. The Promised Land. But there's no need to be sad, Mother. Because I'm here for you. Now and forever.
Maybe the Promised Land is not just a specific location in one world as Shinra thought, but instead only exists when all of the worlds are united as one? Sephiroth's every move appears to be leading to a reunification of the worlds of the planet and Jenova, as foretold by the Cetra in the Temple of the Ancients.
It's upon us. The reunion, when worlds merge. When spite and sorrow are harvested to feed the planet.
Heed well our warning of that which is to come. The reunion. When our adversaries scattered malignancy shall converge to plague the planet once more.
And while we've gone over most of the evidence to that effect, there's still one disturbing part of Sephiroth's plan that I still want to address. From what we've seen across multiple worlds, it appears Sephiroth is intentionally hunting Aerith in every world with the intent to kill her.
Yeah. Because she's the savior.
He even confirms as much to Aerith herself, twice.
So this is where you've been hiding, in a world that has accepted its fate. Just as you must.
How can you want this, Sephiroth? How can you want an eternity of loneliness?
Be gone. Your part is played.
With this context, when Aerith runs at the introduction of Sephiroth's theme during the opening...
Right. I already know. She knows that he's lurking, and she's getting picked off in all these realities. Because he knows that she's the ultimate savior who saves the planet. And because killing Aerith is that push that Cloud needs to further Sephiroth's agenda.
But why would Sephiroth go through such effort? Besides being extremely vindictive, what reason could he have to actively hunt her down?
Every world has our characters. So by going from world to world and killing every Aerith, he's making sure that every Cloud in that world gets that push, gets that motivation, and keeps those dark thoughts flowing to keep his Jenova cells going. because de novo cells thrive on dark emotions.
I believe we have a couple of clues to Sephiroth's intent.
Oh?
As we reviewed earlier, after people die and enter the lifestream, it takes a while before their energy in the lifestream then gives rise to new life.
In time, yeah.
Sephiroth's endgame has something to do with the creation of a forever, in which the cycle of life and death would be disrupted.
Ah. But there will be. Our world will become a part of it. One day. But I will not end.
Nor will I have you end.
Nor will I have you end.
Sephiroth has been unifying worlds, resulting in the screams of the planet.
Listen to the planet, Cloud. To her ecstatic cries, her rapture.
Screaming! It's screaming!
What you heard just now were the voices of the planet. Those born into this world, who lived and who died, who returned. They're howling in pain.
Because of him, Sephiroth?
Their words, they don't reach him. All these moments and memories, precious and fleeting, they're like rain rolling off his back. And when they're gone, he won't cry or shout or anything.
From this, we can deduce that if people have died and their essence or consciousness is in the lifestream at the time those worlds are unified, they may cease to exist. And on the flip side of that coin, what would happen to the multiple versions of everyone who are alive and not in the lifestream at the time Sephiroth successfully executes the final unification? Do all of the worlds converge and suddenly there's a single version of every living person who ends up in one unified world?
That's my main theory. It's Secret Wars. It's Secret Wars 2015. The collapse of the multiverse. One world, one roof, one version of every character. That's what I've been talking about this whole time.
And live together? But if Sephiroth really is trying to create an eternity where no one dies, it's entirely possible Sephiroth is trying to eliminate Aerith from all worlds prior to executing the final unification, leaving her spiritual energy in the limbo period across all worlds so she wouldn't be present as the remaining Cetra to rival him in the new unified forever.
Right.
He has to be stopped by a Cetra. And I'm the last.
Because she's technically...
So there you have it.
Yeah.
We set out to break...
Yeah, because she's technically not the last Cetra if there's variants floating around.
Down the lore and mysteries found thus far in the Final Fantasy VII Remake project, helping us all who were feeling exactly like Zack.
What in the hell is going on?
And make the case for how these puzzle pieces fit together in the way that makes the most sense. If you're with me and everything in this video makes a lot of sense to you too, let us know in the comments. Conversely, if you disagree or have your own takeaways from Remake and Rebirth, let us know as well and share your own thoughts with us. And for those fans who have only played the Remake series and are trying to remain spoiler-free until Part 3, I did my best to record this video without using any of the other information found in the Final Fantasy VII compilation, but I would just recommend being super careful when diving into the comments, just in case folks share more info than what was found in Remake and Rebirth. A big shout out to Blitz for helping me to give shape to the ideas bouncing around in my head. Go check him out on YouTube, Twitch, and all the socials. Also be sure to check out Kilika Beats, who provided all of the fantastic lo-fi tracks that are found in this video. You can find their awesome video on YouTube and linked in the description as well. And also to my wife, who's been so supportive as I've started diving into content creation. Thank you so much for exploring these topics with me, and I'll see you in the next video.
Good stuff. That's a good one. See, that's what I'm talking about. New ideas. Float around some new ideas. Everything I've heard up to this point aren't bad ideas. It's just that it's a lot of the same. This whole notion that the Cetra split worlds into multiple worlds to keep Jenova at bay, and Sephiroth's main goal is to unify everything. Yeah. There's one other one. Oh, there was actually two, but I'm only going to do one of these, and I'll probably come back to the other later. Let's go with TheReasonableClerith.
Well, hello there. I'm TheReasonableClerith, and tonight's topic is one of the most divisive...
It's pretty short, about 13 and a half minutes.
Speak to people on X or Reddit, and most will answer quickly and firmly. The re-trilogy must have a definitive ending. It must decide whether it is a faithful remake or a sequel. It must resolve the long-standing shipping debate. It must...
The shipping debate is irrelevant. There's nothing remotely important about who Cloud dates in the grand scheme of things. I mean, I'm probably going to catch a little heat for this for anybody who cares to click on this video. But the only reason why there's love interests in Final Fantasy VII and other RPGs is so girls will play the games. That's probably a hot take. It's probably a hot take, but I don't care. Because everybody well, not everybody, but a large chunk of the Final Fantasy VII community, a reasonable chunk of the Final Fantasy VII community, makes a big deal about whether Cloud dates Tifa or Aerith. And it's never been a point of interest for me. It's never been important to the story. Never.
Finally conclude the arc of Sephiroth. And it absolutely, most positively, must not expand into yet more spin-offs and transmedia experiments.
Agreed. The trilogy needs to have a definitive ending, and it can't spin off into other games or books or movies. If they do that, cool. It just means more Final Fantasy VII. But I want more Final Fantasy VII I can play. Or more to the point, I want Final Fantasy VII I can play that starts a new beginning for these characters. Or one of them, or two of them. It doesn't matter. I don't want this to spill over into other games. This has to be resolved.
But beneath these declarations lies something simpler. When fans say definitive ending, what they actually mean is the ending they want.
Yes.
The plot direction they believe in, the ship they support, the interpretation they've always held on to. The reality is this: if Square Enix closes the story too tightly, excluding all other interpretations, a significant portion of the fan base will feel alienated.
Disagree. Just because a player, some random player, didn't get the ending they wanted, that they shouldn't feel alienated. That's just entitlement. It's a very bratty, immature way to look at things. The devs need to do what they want to do. They need to follow through with the plan that they have. They can't be pandering to a certain corner of the FF7 community. It's not artistic. I have an ending in mind, but if they don't do it, if they don't do that, then that's cool. That's cool. I want to see what they want to do. I want Nomura to follow through on his plan for these characters. I definitely don't want them to be ambiguous about it.
And alienation on that scale is damaging, not only to the trilogy itself, but to Square Enix's relationship with its audience at a time where they really need to bolster trust.
I'll agree with that.
Yes, today we are talking about multiple or dynamic endings, and why I have the sneakiest of feelings we're going to see them in part 3. Oh god, I can only imagine what my ratio is going to look like for this one. Oh, and by the way, this is not a shipping vid. We're really not
Oh, thank
looking at
God.
romances here.
Thank God.
The great audience divide. On one side are the OG purists, players who regard the 1997 original as a blueprint not to be altered. They want the same pacing, the same beats, and the same tragedy that gave the original its enduring power. Presumably they also want that same nostalgic feeling of their mother's disapproving gaze, but I guess they only need to turn round to experience that. Jokes! On the other side are the Defy Fate advocates, players who embraced the ending of Remake with its overt suggestion of change. They welcome departures from the script and want a bold reinterpretation of familiar events. Both groups matter. Losing one would not simply be a creative risk, it would be a financial one. This trilogy is not an art house project, it's the centerpiece of Square Enix's catalogue, especially with failures elsewhere. The third part especially has immense stakes. This isn't just about immediate sales, it's about upsell, cross-sell, and maybe even the elusive trust. That mystical substance Square Enix has been trying to win back ever since their previous games, Corridor Simulator 09, Empty Space Simulator 23, and to a lesser extent, Gay Boy Band Road Trip Edition, failed to bring in the numbers they were expected to. Promises to keep. In a game featuring a song called No Promises to Keep, Square Enix has made two promises to its players that it has to keep, ironically. To the purists, reassurance that all core events will remain intact, including the ending.
That was never a concern. After I finished Remake, it was pretty obvious to me that they weren't going to change anything significant other than the multiverse stuff, Sephiroth's new plan. You just got the OG with an expanded gameplay experience. That's all. And anybody who was worried that they were going to, change things that were significant, they must have a really bad relationship with Square Enix and its catalog.
Developer interviews have often stressed fidelity, repeatedly referencing Advent Children as a touchstone. Kitase has suggested a more optimistic tone at times, but overall the messaging has been conservative with regards to deviation from the OG. To the Fate Defiers, promises of surprise and deviation. The marketing and the game itself leans into this. Red 13's words during the climax of Remake, different in English and Japanese, but consistent in implication, tell the player that repeating the key beats from the OG constitutes a failure. Add to this the changes we have already seen, partial evacuation of Sector 7, Cloud's expanded knowledge, Aerith's uncertain fate. These are not minor adjustments.
They're not.
Each of these have a valid view. The purists can say that all along the devs have hinted at this from the very start, despite sometimes strange wording or the odd off-script Kitase murmurings. But otherwise, the devs have been fairly consistent, haven't they? Then on the side of the Fate Defiers, they feel that so much has already been talked about, foreshadowed, teased. So many assets designed specifically to tell the story of these other worlds, of other potential outcomes. They'll feel betrayed that all of this narrative promise is so much smoke and mirrors. Thus, two promises, two audiences, one trilogy and millions of hearts to break. It's less of a plan and more of an existential crisis between SE and their core audiences.
Again, I just want the devs to follow through with their plan. The only thing that I would not like about their plan is if they left the story, well, rather the conflict, unresolved. I would personally hate it if the devs just left it ambiguous and left it up for our imaginations. Don't do that. That's a chump move. That's a punk out. Don't do that. Come up with a definitive ending that'll keep everybody happy. And it's not going to work across the whole spectrum. It's not. But I would like it more if the devs just had a plan in mind and stuck to it. Just don't leave it open-ended. Just don't do that.
Multiple endings. Now, what the higher echelons of SE will want is to maximize lifetime value of their players. That is, to keep them sweet and keep them playing and paying. The best way to do this is, rather sadly, give them what they want. They will want both of these audiences and whatever other commercial cohort they've identified, finishing the game and enjoying it. So much so that they buy multiple copies on multiple devices. Not only that, but they continue to buy merch, to buy future games, to be brand ambassadors. All of this is upside and reflects directly on share price and the future viability of the business. So, how do SE go about making everyone relatively happy? There are two ways to approach this should they wish to adhere to both of these promises and keep everyone smiling. Multiple endings or layered interpretation. Despite vocal objections like the one you're probably yelling at the screen right now, during my time in the video games industry, I've seen numerous robust research studies that show that most players do in fact appreciate multiple endings. Consider the success of Witcher 3.
It really
Baldur's
depends.
Gate 3, Clair Obscur Expedition 33. Maybe it's just
It really depends on what we're talking about. FF7 in particular, I mean, I'm a broken record. I sound like a broken record. Come to a reasonable conclusion and just stick to it.
Silent Hill 2. Life is Strange, Lies of P, Dying Light 2, The Dark Pictures Anthology, Pathfinder, Disco Elysium, Detroit Become Human, Dragon Age. These games show that branching outcomes deepen engagement, extend playtime, and strengthen emotional investment for a number of players.
Yeah, but what's canon? You make a game that has multiple endings. Which one is canon? Much like Cloud's dating scenes. You got a date with Aerith, you got a date with Tifa, Red, like every Yuffie, everybody. Which one is canon though? Of course, Aerith is the one that's canon, and I'm not saying that because I'm an Aerith guy. I'm saying that because she's the most relevant to the story, and it's been like that since 1997. So if you're going to make a game with multiple endings, you have to establish something canonical.
I see, Final Fantasy VII isn't a choose-your-own adventure. Well, to that I say a couple of things. Firstly, how do you get into my head, and why do you keep asking me to set fire to things?
Carry.
Secondly, Bioshock, Nier, Spec Ops: The Line, Chrono Trigger, Castlevania Symphony of the Night, these are all fairly linear stories that also have differing endings, sometimes based on some pretty basic mechanics. FF7 wouldn't be somehow breaking a mystic gaming law by having this divergence come at the end of the story. Also, just keep in mind that multiple endings can be subtle. For example, a single overarching conclusion but with added elements shaped by choices or conditions met. These can create different nuances and flavours despite retaining the overall creative direction, and still be classed as a multiple ending. More specifically, a modular ending. Square Enix has already done this. Final Fantasy X2 had a branching ending with variations, ranging from bittersweet to complete reunion. If the company could manage that while dressing Yuna in pop star spandex, surely they could manage something here. What players say versus what they desire. There is often a gap between what players say they want and what they respond to emotionally. I've seen this happen in biometric testing where we see the difference between implicit and explicit reactions. No, not explicit like that. Think of it more like your subconscious desires versus your stated and more rational responses. We see it with some die-hard OG fans and the Tifa kiss. On the one hand, these players actively lobby for things to remain as per the OG. On the other, we have them celebrating the Tifa kiss despite it completely altering the nature of the Tifa romance. It's not just extra, it changes the narrative experience considerably. In the OG at this point, Tifa and Cloud's relationship was still awkward, unknown. It needed the livestream to remedy this, acting as the romantic Rubicon. It's one of the biggest narrative changes we've seen so far, yet people overlook this and move the goalposts of what is acceptable. Why? because players want their dreams realized far more than they want their ethical stances preserved. Put simply, principles are lovely until they get in the way of wish fulfillment. And it would be exactly the same for any other audience group, not just Tifa fans. The arguments will continue. A common objection is that multiple endings will only fuel endless debate about what is canon. To which the answer is yes,
dude,
obviously.
Yes!
But let's be realistic. Final Fantasy debates will continue until the heat death of the universe. Even then, the last dying embers of the last dying star will probably flicker in Morse code. The more important question is this. Is it better for two groups to continue arguing over the nuances of canon, but be happy with their version of events? Or for one group to feel completely excluded and, quite frankly, angry? You think the arguments on X are bad now? Imagine what they would be if, after 30 years, one audience's view is completely and utterly invalidated.
I mean, I guess I'm just more mature than the gamers he's talking about. Again, the only thing that I'm not gonna like is if they leave it ambiguous. Now, maybe they could come up with something more concrete. I'll appreciate that, but that's not to say I'll like it. One thing that I would like more than anything is if they leave the possibility for more FF7 stories and games. In games particularly, going forward. If they close FF7 as a whole in Part 3, and they're just not going to make any more FF7 games anymore, I'll be disappointed. But I'll respect it because it's a concrete conclusion that they came up with and stuck to.
Interpretation as an alternative. There's also another path, interpretation. Square Enix has long leaned on ambiguity as a narrative device, and the multiverse structure provides a natural way to continue this.
Yeah.
The final act could suggest the coexistence of multiple outcomes, one aligning with the OG, another diverging, perhaps others entirely new. Each could be framed as valid within its own world. The same applies.
And of course, I'm going to go with the ending that's not the OG. But I guess I just fell into a trap. I guess I might have just fell into a trap where if they do something ambiguous, then I'll pick and choose what I prefer to happen. Yeah.
The character fates. Zack, Aerith, even the romantic pairings could be reflected across different realities, leaving space for all interpretations.
Mainly because I already know what happens at the end of the OG. I know that story. So I'm going to go with what's new.
This approach avoids a definitive answer or diluting the narrative experience through choice, though it still allows fans to find their preferred vision within the text. But sometimes it fails to satisfy anyone other than those completely at ease with such a narrative device. US audiences, in particular, tend to hate anything that relies on interpretation and will often be the first to bring up what constitutes canon.
He's not wrong.
Nomura overseeing the final section,
You're not wrong, buddy.
Master of such wibbly-wobbly storytelling, it's an approach that seems especially likely. And the more I hear Katase's confidence that players will be happy with the conclusion, the more I think one of these multifaceted approaches will be making its way to a PlayStation, PC, Switch 2, Xbox near you.
Yeah, same.
Conclusion. Should the re-trilogy pursue multiple endings and/or interpretation? Despite what I've said today, I really don't mind. I'm not particularly for multiple endings, but I am for fans being able to glean an ending they identify with. Perhaps not completely, but to the extent it doesn't invalidate what they played so far. As an employee of the video games industry, I want to see happy, engaged players, and the cause of video games furthered, even if it is a rival. If Square Enix wishes to honour its promises, meet its financial goals, and preserve its bond with its audience, the path is clear. Allow multiplicity. Multiple endings, or at least multiple interpretations, give each audience a way to see themselves reflected in the work. And whilst you may think you want a definitive ending, I challenge you to think on this. How would you react if the ending you got was the opposite of what you've always hoped for?
How would I react? I'd be happy with the decision that they made. I don't want them to cop out and make things ambiguous so they can appeal to everybody all at once. It's smart, but it's a cop-out. To me, that feels like we couldn't decide on an ending, so let's just do the multiverse thing where we can make multiple endings that'll appeal to everybody. It's not a bad narrative strategy, but I mean, there's a lot of us out there, me included, who would want this thing to come to a definitive closing. And if they do that, I'll respect it. But like I said, I want them to leave the door open for more FF7 games going forward past the trilogy. If they don't do that, I'll be disappointed. But at least they came to a conclusion and stuck to it.
Would you take it on the chin? Would you brush it off? Would you act rationally? I didn't think so. Square Enix can protect both the legacy of the original and the innovation of the remake. After decades of waiting, the fans deserve nothing less. Even then, it's a hugely difficult...
Because at the end of the day, this isn't my game. I didn't work on this game. I'm just a fan. I'm just a guy who plays. And yeah, you want to get your money's worth. But there's no sense in being a crybaby about it just because they didn't do something that you wanted them to do. This is art. This is their art. This is Nomura's art. This is Hamaguchi's art. This is Teruki Endo's art. This is Toriyama's art. This is their art. And we just have to respect it. If you don't like it, you're allowed not to like it. But if you're going to get on Twitter or Facebook, Instagram, whatever, and cry about it, then it says more about you than it does about them.
Brief. But let's face it, Final Fantasy VII has always been about impossible odds. Maybe satisfying its fans is its biggest boss battle yet.
Good stuff. Both really good videos. I'm glad I sat here and recorded for them. These are very good ideas that they're throwing out. Yeah, so that'll do it. That'll do it. Big shout outs to TheReasonableClerith and John Q Gamer for those good videos. Lots of good points being made. Lots of good ideas being thrown out there. Keeping the FF7 conversation going for the next year or so when Part 3 comes out. Everybody have a good one, and I'll see y'all for the next one.